Today we're going to be making a super simple gluten-free ramen from a recipe that I found online. Some of the ingredients that you're going to need include a white onion, garlic, ginger, carrots, and cilantro. For the base of the sauce, we're going to be using vegetable stock, along with some soy sauce, sriracha, sesame oil, fish sauce, and some red pepper flakes to make our own garlic chili sauce. I'm going to be using these gluten-free brown rice and millet ramen noodles. I had these on hand in my pantry already and figured I would use them for this recipe. We're also going to need a couple eggs to boil, along with some chicken thighs that we're also going to cook in the stock pot. You're going to want a big stock pot, big enough to hold the chicken and cook them covered completely in water, along with a microplane to grind your ginger, and some measuring utensils. You're going to start out by finely mincing your garlic until it is very small, and I used about 2 cloves of garlic, even though, as you can see on the side of my board, these are quite huge cloves of garlic that I got from my grocery store that I work at. Once your garlic is minced finely, you're going to collect it together and put it in a bowl, set it off to the side. I highly recommend using a bench scraper to do this part. That way you don't get the garlic all over your hands, and that way you don't dull your knife. But I wasn't really in the mood to go grab it, so here we are, scooping it into a bowl. Once your garlic is taken care of, you're going to go ahead and clean off your board and get ready to start chopping your onion. I'm using a white onion in this recipe because of its mild flavor. I don't want a red onion to be too overpowering in this ramen recipe. You're going to start by cleaning off the ends and chopping it in half. We're only going to be using 1/2. You can use the whole onion, but I don't like onion that much, so I only did half of it, and because I didn't feel like chopping it up that much. Get the little hairs off your board, and then you're going to want to peel off the onion skin. There's an outer skin, and then there's also a thinner, more sticky skin that's attached to the onion, so just make sure you get all those layers off. Once you have your onion peeled, I learned this trick on Food Network, you want to make horizontal cuts in the onion. I made about 4 or 5 of them from the bottom to the top. And then you're going to slice down with the grain a few slices. And then slice across all of that to get perfectly diced onion. Once your onion's taken care of, you are going to transfer your garlic into a smaller bowl because you didn't realize how much volume onion takes up, and then put that onion in that bowl. I am the biggest frickin' baby when it comes to slicing onions, so by the end of this I had tears completely streaming down my face and was totally sniffing, which is why there's no audio in the back of this. Once you have your onion prepared, you're going to go ahead and get your skillet going on some medium-high heat and add some oil to your pan so that way you can start cooking your onions down. I ended up using a smaller size stock pot to cook the onions and garlic in, and ended up adding the soup in all together in there since it fit. And then you're going to make sure that your chicken doesn't overboil and get its juice all over the stovetop and burn onto your burner. But you can fix that just by taking it off the heat and letting the bubbles go away. So now we're going to be adding our onion now that our pan is nice and hot. You're going to let this sizzle down, simmer down for a few minutes, and let the onions cook down until they become translucent. It can help if you add more oil to make them cook a little bit more evenly, and so that way none of them burn. And just make sure you give them a good stir around. We're going to be adding some carrots diced in with the onions. In hindsight, I should have added them at the beginning with the onions, but it ended up being okay. because they tasted good, kind of crunchy in the soup. We're going to make a little hole for our garlic to go in. You want to add the garlic last so that way it doesn't sit there burning while it takes the onions and carrots a little bit of time to cook. Give those a stir around a few times, make sure everything cooks evenly. And once it looks like the garlic, onions, and carrots are starting to sweat and cook down, you're going to want to add your vegetable stock. I ended up using the entire 32-ounce container of it, which is 4 cups. The recipe called for 6 cups of stock or broth. I ended up adding 1 cup of chicken stock, also from the chicken that we boiled in the pot next to it. So here's that chicken stock going in. You're going to want to let the broth simmer for at least 10 minutes before we do the next step. Next, we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of tamari gluten-free soy sauce. So you're going to be constantly simmering and stirring in between. We also made a homemade garlic chili oil. I just cooked some garlic in some oil, sesame oil and olive oil, and then added a teaspoon and a half of red pepper flakes and let it simmer together, and threw it in the blender with some fish sauce to make a little garlic sauce, and I just added that. It added a nice spicy flavor to my soup broth without being overpowering. So you're going to have this simmering at least 10 minutes on the stove top, and that's going to get all of the flavors built together, cook the carrots down a little bit. Now we're going to start boiling some water for our ramen noodles. The ramen noodles only took 4 minutes to cook, so once the noodles get soft and start falling apart, you can fluff them up with a fork, so that way they separate and cook completely. Once your noodles have reached the 4-minute mark, you can test them and make sure that they're cooked all the way. And you're going to go ahead and take them off the stove top and drain them. I'm going to add the chicken. I shredded it on the board to the side. It looked like the drumsticks weren't quite cooked through all the way when I boiled them, so I let the bigger drumsticks stay in the boiling water a little bit longer and just took them out one by one and shredded them up as they were finished cooking. But I also added them to this simmering / boiling soup, so I knew that they would finish cooking while they were in there too. You can definitely let the soup keep simmering to develop flavors, but I was hungry and ready to eat. You're going to start plating by placing your noodles in the bottom of the bowl first, and then scooping in the chicken and vegetable mixture on top of that, along with a few scoops of the broth after to fill up the bowl. I forgot to mention earlier that you need green onion for this recipe too, but I ended up not having any and I ran out to the store kind of halfway through filming, so I ended up picking up some green onion, and we used that chopped cilantro from earlier as garnishes. Along with a soft-boiled egg that's traditionally served in ramen soup. I ended up boiling the egg for 7 minutes and then letting it just sit in hot water while I was kind of finishing things up, and then peeled it. And there you go. You have a delicious bowl of ramen. Looks super, super yummy for Instagram, and it was super delicious to have for dinner. Thanks for watching. See you next time.